cada vez que te pienso.
Thank you so much for watching The Real Source with me, Tafadzwa. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Cook Off, which is the first Zimbabwean film to stream on the global giant Netflix. As a Zimbabwean myself, I'm filled with a lot of pride reviewing this because, to be quite honest with you, I didn't imagine that anytime soon I would review something out of Zimbabwe, not because we can't make movies in Zimbabwe, but because, as everyone knows, Zimbabwe has been through the most politically, economically, and socially. And one of the areas that has really taken a knock is our film industry. A lot of people hesitate to call it a film industry. We prefer to call it a film community, because it hasn't, over the last few decades, generated a lot of money. It hasn't been a viable, profitable business for those who are in it. That said, I am incredibly proud of what Zimbabwean filmmakers have done over the past few years. And the producer of Cook Off, Joe Njagu, is a case in point. He is a man on a mission. He has looked at what Zimbabwe has to offer from a film point of view and said, we want to turn this little community into an industry that is viable, that is sustainable, that can employ people. He is joined in producing the film by the director, Tomas Lutuli Brickhill. And I have to say that the two of them in this work of collaboration have really come up with something that we as Zimbabweans, but also as an African continent, can be really proud of. What is Cook Off about? Well, it is the story of a young single mother, Anesu, who is played by Tendai Chitima, and she is entered into a cooking competition, quite a high-profile cooking competition, by her son, Tapiwa, who is played by newcomer Eugene Zimbudzi. And so the story is about how she debates and fights within herself and fights against competitors to rise to the top of that cooking competition. Alongside her is Prince, who is played by Ten Diamond, and he, apart from being a co-contestant in this cooking competition, also becomes a love interest. Worth noting is the appearance of Jesesi Mungoshi, who plays the part of Anesu's grandmother. Now, Jesesi Mungoshi's role is particularly special because, for those of you who know about the music of Oliver Mtukudzi, the late great Oliver Mtukudzi, a real African icon, he is known most for the song Neria, and Neria was the original soundtrack theme from a movie of the same name, Neria, and Jesesi Mungoshi was the star of that movie. And so we see her again on screen many years later, now playing the part of a grandmother. And that was really refreshing for me as a Zimbabwean audience member to see her. Now let's talk about the story itself. It promises, as I said, to be a feel-good rom-com, and I believe it delivers on that promise. You are constantly laughing. Tendai Ishe referred to Cook Off as a love letter to Zimbabwe, just talking about how the movie celebrates the simplicity of Zimbabwean people, the hard-working nature and resilience of Zimbabwean people. And I really believe she was telling the truth when she said that that is what Cook Off is about. It's a down-to-earth movie. Nobody is trying to act Hollywood. Nobody is trying to be anything other than authentic, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the movie. Now, of course, when doing a review, one can't get too carried away by emotion. Is it a perfect story? Not necessarily. There are some holes. There are some characters, for example, the character of Jacob, who I felt was entirely unnecessary. I was also slightly disappointed by the ending of the movie, not because it was bad, but the characters whom we had really become drawn to, I think, were Anesu and Tapiwa, the mother and son. And so I felt the closing scene shouldn't have been between Anesu and her mother reconciling. I didn't feel that that relationship was established deeply enough for us to really care. To be quite honest, the mother character was a nasty piece of work. And so while reconciliation is beautiful to see on screen, I felt the ending scene could have been better served by something happening between Anesu and Tapiwa, maybe a scene in which he is encouraged to do more because he has seen his mother defeat all adversity to, rise to the top. So those are my thoughts on the story, but all in all, it's a feel-good story that promise is delivered upon. Let me talk a little bit about budget, because I think one often forgets as a viewer that the budget that goes into a production often translates quite visually and visibly into what you see on screen. Of course, you can make great work on small budgets, but I do want you as an audience member certainly to be aware that this film was produced on a shoestring budget, and I do commend highly the production team that came up with this film for making what they did on such a shoestring budget. I have to make special mention of the soundtrack. The soundtrack was composed and arranged by Koriya, who is a good friend of mine, and I have to say that it really did a spot-on job of just making the film flow. It kept the energy going, and it certainly kept those cooking competition scenes really tense and exciting. And so to Ryan, I want to say great congratulations for doing a stunning job on the soundtrack. So those are my thoughts on Cook Off, the first Zimbabwean film on Netflix. Again, I have to say that this is a movie that I watched with a great deal of pride, and as a reviewer, one must be fair. This is not a perfect film. It had its limitations. It also had its holes and gaps in the story, but all in all, it's a commendable piece of work, and I really do look forward to seeing more invested into this group of filmmakers, as well as many others who are fighting hard to put Zimbabwe back on the scene. And so from me here on The Real Source, thank you so much for watching, and take care.